Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Center for Spiritual Living Victoria Online. It's a pleasure to see you here again with us today. And if you do want to join us in person at sometime rather than online, we're located at 380 Cook Street in Victoria. Today, my talk is Dancing in the Light. And I was thinking a lot about this past week as our Thanksgiving weekend was over, and I hope that all of you had a really good one. But I was also thinking about how special holidays like Thanksgiving, Christmas bring up feelings of dread in a lot of people. There are many who don't want to get together with family, and they kind of do it reluctantly, and they're expecting things to go badly for them. And I was thinking about that because I kind of remember a time in my life where something would be niggling me when we would have a family gathering like Thanksgiving or Christmas. And what would happen for me is that on Christmas morning, for example, I would wake up really happy, and my children would be so excited, and the day would go on, and I'd be cooking and preparing a feast for any number of people. But by the time we sat down to dinner, I would suddenly get very, very quiet, and I would withdraw. And it happened year after year. Well, probably for about 4 or 5 years. And I could never figure it out. And my husband would always ask me what was wrong. And I would say, I don't know. I just kind of feel funny. And there was an overwhelming sadness, but there was also a lot of anxiety. And I really had to sit with that and think about it and try to figure out what it was. And all of a sudden, there was this great aha. And that was that when I was a child, my parents were both alcoholics. And Christmas would start out being quite wonderful in the morning. And by later in the day, I would be just waiting for the fight to start because my parents always fought when they drank, and they drank every day, which meant they fought every day. And having this great realization, I realized that when we sat down to Christmas dinner, I was waiting for the fight to begin. And of course, it never did. Thank God. We had a wonderful family, and that kind of thing just didn't happen at our place. But the interesting thing about that is that as soon as I recognized it, I was able to heal it. I was able to understand that this does not happen with us. You know, it's not part of our home environment in any way. And the healing was incredible. So I could go forth and just be really, really happy all the way through. And the same with every other special occasion. So what I was experiencing was, of course, my shadow self. What is stuffed away, suppressed from childhood. Carl Jung, of course, calls it the shadow, and he said basically it's about who we don't ever want to be, and that's what comes up for us. And the thing is that shadow suppresses so many things. And so it stands to reason, doesn't it, that if it's suppressing bad memories or feelings of shame, certainly for me, it was a feeling of shame. I was embarrassed about the way my family was way back when I was a child. Those kinds of feelings, if they're being suppressed, then isn't it likely that we are also suppressing our magnificence? If there's a blanket of cloud over everything, you're not going to see the light. You're not going to see the goodness in everything. And so Thanksgiving or any holiday is the opportunity for us to rise up above that, and to really, really understand that our shadow does have enormous power over us. And that's why it's so important for us to be in touch with it. And it doesn't mean that it's going to be easy. It doesn't mean that it's going to feel good. It does mean that we may encounter quite a bit of pain along the way. But the thing is, it is so worth it, because when it comes up and we can heal it, it means that we can totally change the way that we're viewing things. And we can start looking at the magnificence. We can start shining that light all over the place and eliminate the darkness. And it's so important. I have a favorite expression that's, um, well, basically, if I want anything to change, I have to change. And when I change, everything changes. And so that's the way it is when we're digging up the dark bits in our personalities, bringing them up to heal. And so how do we basically do this? How do we get to a place where, where we're shining the light and we're dancing in the light? We're going through darkest times, or feeling things that we just don't understand. And it can happen at any time. It doesn't necessarily just happen to be, around a special holiday. These things come up for us in experiences all the time. It could be in our workplace, could be in relationships, could be in just about anything. And it leads to certain habits that we develop very early on. Do we work too hard because we're trying to prove ourselves? Do we have addictions to certain things? Addictions to alcohol, to tobacco, to food, to television, to any kind of technical device that we might have right now. Looking at those kinds of things, if we're trying to escape from our reality, then it's really something that we need to look at, and something we need to understand. And so I was thinking about some principles for change. And one of those is that miracles happen. Do you believe in miracles? I believe in miracles. I've witnessed miracles in my life, and I'm very grateful for that. But sometimes it's hard for people to believe in them. If they've been down and out for quite a while, they just tend to think that they're not ever going to get out of that dark place. But miracles do happen. I had somebody recently talking to me who was struggling with faith and didn't really believe in miracles. And I was saying that when I have a class, especially if it's a first-year class, I typically will hand out thick rubber bands and tell my students to put them on their wrists. And whenever they have a negative thought, to snap the rubber band. And it hurts. And after you do that for about a week, you find that you consciously start changing your thoughts. And I suggest that they set a timer on their cell phone, or an alarm. And when that timer goes off or the alarm goes off, ask yourself, what is it I'm thinking? Am I thinking something positive? Am I thinking something negative? Are these dark thoughts? Are these light thoughts? And to really become conscious of it. If it's a negative thing, snap that rubber band. Truly, truly, it works. It works until you take the rubber band off and forget all about it if you're not committed to making a change in your life. Anyway, I was sharing this with someone the other day, and I was doing a meditation, and she opted out. And she got back to me later and said that she realized that that was kind of rude to do that. I mean, I didn't think so. I just thought she needed to disappear for a while. But she sent me a video, and she said what was really funny was after she had logged off, she looked down, and here was a rubber band on her wrist. She didn't even know it was there, a thick rubber band. And so she was laughing at herself, and I had a great belly laugh over it as well. Every once in a while, something happens. I mean, that may not seem like a miracle, but it's no coincidence that something like that happens. And so let's look for the miracles in our lives, and let's know that they're there. Um, you know, believe it. We can believe in them or not believe in them, but isn't it better to believe in them? I mean, when we know that our thoughts create our reality. I mean, science now proves that our thoughts start to create form. Isn't it to our benefit to think positively and to think about the beautiful things in life, rather than the negative things in life, which are going to pull us down? I think so. And I was thinking about Carl Jung and Joseph Campbell. The two of them spent a lot of time analyzing fairy tales. They said basically that most of the fairy tales that we grew up with began as spiritual stories. And it was during a time when Christianity was, or it was dangerous to be a Christian. And so in order to keep the teachings alive, they were kind of camouflaged in metaphors. And those metaphors became stories. And the stories were typically passed along by women. And they passed them along when they were spinning wool into yarn. And so there's a kind of rhythm to them. If you think about it, there's kind of you can think of somebody spinning and just, long ago and far away at the table of the knights, the round table in Camelot. There's a kind of cadence to those things. And locked within the stories are wonderful spiritual truths. And one of the ones that I find both amusing and wonderful is Cinderella. I mean, we all know the story of Cinderella. We all grew up with that story, and there have been movies and and all kinds of more contemporary movies that have made about that film. But the thing is that it was a spiritual story. And so what's the story? Well, the story is, of course, that Cinderella um, is basically living as a really subjugated servant in her father's home. Her father has died, and her stepmother and her stepsisters are very cruel to her. They're very abusive. And there's a great ball that has been organized at the palace where the prince is said to perhaps take a wife. And so the stepmother is preparing her daughters for this great event with beautiful gowns and so on. And Cinderella is told that she can't go. But the spiritual essence of this is actually that the palace where the ball is being held, is heaven, or in terms of what we think of in our faith as heaven, is this place of complete enlightenment, where all souls are completely enlightened. That's what the palace represents. And the prince represents our spiritual nature. Nobody ever talks about that when we read the fairy tale of Cinderella. But anyway, the sisters and the stepmother go off to the ball, and who should appear but the fairy godmother? Think about that. Godmother. And she has a magic wand. And she doesn't say to Cinderella, you're going to go to the ball, and here's my credit card. Go off to Holt Renfrew and buy yourself a beautiful gown. And, where's my cell phone? I'll call a cab for you to get there. No. She waves a magic wand, and Cinderella has a beautiful gown, and a pumpkin turns into a coach, and the mice turn into coachmen, and Cinderella's on her way to the ball, where she meets the prince, and she dances with the prince. And at the stroke of midnight, she leaves the palace and runs, and of course she loses her glass slipper. We all know the story. And in the end, of course, the prince finds her, and they go off together and live happily ever after. The spiritual part of this is that the fairy godmother, the magic wand is something that we all have within us. We all have the power and presence of God within. And so we can use that power to create form, to create our reality. When whatever it is that we're most focused upon, good or bad, we'll create. And so we really need to consciously use our minds to be aware of our thoughts so that we're thinking positive things. And when we go off to the ball, when we're dancing, we're basically dancing in the light of the palace. We're in the light of God. We're embraced by the divine. And we become aware of our own spiritual nature. The prince who's dancing with us is our spiritual nature dancing with us in the light. And so for that brief time, we're connected. We're connected with God in every way. We feel that oneness. We feel that power within us, and we're in total bliss. And then we run off, maybe leave a shoe or a glass slipper behind. Maybe it's kind of like Hansel and Gretel, like leaving a trail of breadcrumbs. Maybe we leave a few things behind so that we can find our way back again. But what happens is the prince finds us. You know, we may be seeking spirituality and we may fall away from it. But spirituality, our spiritual nature, is always seeking us. It doesn't even have to look very far. It's right there within us. And so it's important for us to remember this. And, you know, when we go to the palace, when we feel that connection with God, it's like being on top of a beautiful mountain somewhere and being able to see forever and being able to see clearly so that we know absolutely everything that's going on in our lives. Where, you know, we go down the mountain. It's like, I get it, I lose it. I get it, I lose it. I practice it, I stop practicing it. But the thing is, once we've been to the mountaintop, once we have felt that, once we have tasted it, once we have experienced it, there's a longing within us to always want to go back. And so once we have been connected with Spirit and really felt the divinity within us, when we have felt that glorious feeling of the greatest love that we could ever imagine, we want it back again. And so it's a reminder to stay connected, to always stay connected to God consciously in every way that we can. And we have to remember that God's holy presence is always there, and we are never powerless. We are powerful beings. And we're the ones that we've been waiting for. Second principle, we're the ones that we've been waiting for. The fairy godmother proves this to us, and science proves this to us now. You know, for the first time, really in the last 150 years or so, we've been going through a time of transformation. You know, the transcendental movement at the end of the 19th century really was a time of great spiritual change. It was a time when New Thought became very powerful. And it happened again at the end of this last century. And so we're still steeped in that, but also what's happened is we have emerged, we've surfaced, we've risen above where we used to be. And so we're in a place now where we can make changes by focusing upon the change that we want to be, focusing upon the change that we want to have. And so this is our time. This is our time. You know, there's this huge spiritual movement that is moving under the radar right now, just waiting for us all to meet one another and suddenly to wake up one morning, all of us together, and understanding that we have created a new world because we have all been on the same path. And we have all been focused upon the same thing. We have been focused upon love. We have been focused upon peace. We have let everything else go. We're not looking at the dark side. We're not looking at shadows. We're not even paying any attention to some of the ugliness in the world. Instead, we're choosing to look at the beauty, all that is beautiful, all that is true. And as we do, that's what we're starting to create. And so this is our time. This is our time because we understand it. This is a time because science has proved it. And it's time to release judgment. You know, I love what Marianne Williamson says, that if we knew enough about anyone, we could forgive anything. And I had a personal experience with this that came to mind this week. And many years ago, I had a contract to work with an organization where I had to sometimes work with a very difficult woman. She was an alcoholic. She didn't say that she was, but she might as well have. If you offered her tea, coffee, or water, she'd say, I never touch any of those things. I only drink vodka. And she always smelled of alcohol. And she was very challenging, and she was forgetful. You know, she would repeat herself a lot. I was really judging. And I know that coming from my background, coming from a background where my parents were alcoholics, it's something that I found really distasteful and something that I didn't ever want to be around. Well, one night, this woman drank very heavily and passed out on top of her bed, and she never woke up. And I received a call the next morning from someone who knew her well and couldn't figure out why she hadn't been out and about the way she usually was in the morning, and had basically called the police, and they had found her. And I went to her funeral not really knowing anything about her background at all. I might have asked at some point, but I didn't. And what I discovered was that she had once been a very beautiful woman, just filled with vitality, filled with energy, who did all kinds of positive things in the community. If there was anything that was needed, she was there and she was working on it, and she was helping everyone. And she was engaged in absolutely anything that was going on. Everybody knew who she was, except me. I was kind of new to the neighborhood. And she had been married to a very wealthy man, and they had a beautiful home together. And it was his second marriage. He had children from his first marriage. He had a couple of sons. And when he passed, he left everything to his wife. And his sons challenged this in court, and they fought it for quite a period of time, and they won. And they left her without a home, and they left her penniless. And she had to move into a very small apartment and tried to keep her dignity as much as she could. She was living on her old age pension, and she was still trying to do good works, but she had become the victim of alcohol. Well, when I heard this, I was in tears. I cried. I cried for this woman, for her past, for the horrible experience that she had. And I cried because I had judged her. I hadn't known what had happened to her in her past. I hadn't walked in her shoes. As Marianne Williamson said, if you know enough about anybody, I didn't know enough about her. But I could have asked. When I saw that she was a troubled person, I could have asked. And so it's been a great lesson for me to not judge other people, or if I am judging, to look for the cause. Look for what it is that has created something in somebody's life that I've been feeling judgmental about, and then to do prayer, and then to release it. And what I know is that, we're here to live in integrity and in love. We're not here to compete with God. We're not here to say, look, I can look after this myself. Let it be. Don't need you right now. I know I've got the smarts. I've got all of the skills. I can do this. We're not here to compete with God. We're here to co-create with God. We're here to be instruments of love, instruments of peace, instruments of goodness in this world. And we have this amazing spiritual partner that is the power that is behind everyone and everything, that is in everyone and everything. It's extraordinary when we stop to think about that. We're co-creating with God. Let's get ourselves out of the way and let this power take over. There's a lovely expression, I don't need to know how, I just need to know what. So when I know what I want, I let God take care of the details. I let God figure out how. I don't have to know how. All I need to know is what I want and what that looks like and what it feels like and how good that is. And I need to keep focusing on that, and it begins to take form. It cannot do anything but, as long as I don't change my mind along the way. Because if I change my mind, I'm going to change that too. So the way that we do this is, another principle is to honor sacred silence, to go into sacred silence, to do so every morning. If we only do it for 5 minutes in the morning, it'll set us up for the day. It'll make a huge difference to the way that our day goes. If we start the day with caffeine and a newspaper, we're probably going to be depressed by noon. The newspapers are not happy places to be these days. They typically never have been. And so So it's really important that we find that time, that sacred time, to just sit and meditate, to close our eyes. No matter that we have thoughts going past us or thoughts in our minds, let us just let them go by. Let them gently go by as we sit in silence and listen. And listen to, I like to say, if there's anything you'd like me to do today, God, please let me know in this time of silence. And I do my prayers in the morning too. But find the time to do that, and maybe find the time during the day to just sit for even a moment and allow yourself to go into peace. Have you seen the commercial on television for the app Calm, where you just hear water running or rain falling? I think it's water cascading down. It's such a beautiful, peaceful sound. We're being reminded all the time now that we need to be mindful. We need to be conscious of what we're doing, conscious of what we're thinking, and we need to find the place to connect with the divine and the time to do it. So just a minute here or there during the day, and then at night, writing down the 3 things you're most grateful for that happened during the day, and going to bed with a smile on your lips. That's going to just set you up for a wonderful day the next day and for a peaceful night's sleep. Cinderella had it all. She had that complete connection with the divine when she went to the palace. She found her spiritual nature as she danced with the prince, and as the prince came back for her. That was her spiritual nature. She had been to the mountaintop. She had seen it all. She had felt it all. She was filled with the power and the presence of God. And so she was able to just let go, of all of the challenges, of all of the abuse, of all of the difficult things in her life, and to just be in the presence. And I'm thinking about this. I pulled out something that I read long ago that I just loved. It's called She Let Go, and I'd like to share it with you. She let go without a thought or a word. She let go. She let go of the fear. She let go of the judgments. She let go of the confluence of opinions swarming around her head. She let go of the committee of indecision within her. She let go of all of the right reasons, wholly and completely, without hesitation or worry. She just let go. She didn't ask anyone for advice. She didn't read a book on how to let go. She didn't search the scriptures. She just let go. She let go of all of the memories that had held her back. She let go of all the anxiety that kept her from moving forward. She let go of the planning and all of the calculations about how to do it just right. She didn't promise to let go. She didn't journal about it. She didn't write the projected date in her day timer. She made no public announcement and put no ad in the paper. She didn't check the weather report or read her daily horoscope. She just let go. She didn't analyze whether she should let go or not. She didn't call her friends to discuss the matter. She didn't do a 5-step spiritual mind treatment. She didn't call the prayer line. She didn't utter one word. She just let go. No one was around when it happened. There was no applause, no congratulations. No one thanked her or praised her. No one noticed a thing, like a leaf falling from a tree. She just let go. There was no effort. There was no struggle. It wasn't good. It wasn't bad. It was what it was. And it is just that. In the space of letting go, she let it all be. And a small smile came over her face. A light breeze blew through her, and the sun and the moon shone forevermore. So let us let go and let God, and we'll be in the palace dancing with the prince. We will have embraced our shadows and found our brilliance, and then we will be dancing dancing in the light, dancing in the palace, dancing with the Prince of Peace, dancing with the divine. And so it is. Thanks for joining in today. It's lovely to see you all, and hope to see you again next week. And if you can drop in person at our center, we're observing all of the COVID protocols to keep our people safe and to keep our space safe. We would love to see you there. If you would like to get in touch with me, or if you would like prayer, simply email prayer@cslvictoria.org, or go to our website, www.cslvictoria.org, and you'll find email addresses there. I'd be happy to speak with you. Our prayer team would be very happy to pray for you if you would like that. So until next week, may you have a blessed time this week, and may you dance in the light and feel a lightness in your spirit and much joy. And so it is. Bye for now.